Welcome to the first episode of WTF Horror, where we do movie reviews of horror movies on a Google slideshow because I'm lazy and I don't really care. So today we're going to be talking about a movie called Hell House, which apparently, for some reason, this movie has a lot of good reviews, and I truly don't know how. So to jump right into things, this movie is plot basically about a group of friends get together to open up a haunted house in a small town at this abandoned hotel that has some sort of mystery behind it, but nobody knows what the mystery is until later on in the movie. Kind of, not really. And now, oh, wow. All right. Off to a great start with the mouse cursor on screen. Very cool. I don't care. So this is the poster image of the movie, and like the poster image kind of gives away a lot about the movie already. Whatever, we're gonna skip over that. So a group of friends, we got our main cast here. We got the dude in the green shirt, that's Paul. The dude in the black hoodie, I think his name's like, I don't even know. I'm just gonna call him Nick. Yeah, Nick, that's his name. In the middle is Alex, who, oh, is my least favorite character in the entire movie. Behind him is the dude who kind of holds the camera most of the time. I'm just gonna call him the camera guy. And then the girl in the white hoodie, whose name is Sarah. That is our main cast of characters, with some side characters that are gonna come later on in the movie that kind of play a part into the plot. This is what the abandoned hotel looks like. Oh my god. It looks so spooky. It looks like a duplex, if anything. It looks like a duplex. Like, that's basically all it is. So to kick off the plot of this movie, these group of friends get together. They're going to go open their haunted house in the middle of basically fucking nowhere, which is great, awesome. We're off to a good plot. And let me just say off the rip, before I get into this plot, I will never understand why this movie has so many good reviews. It is a poor man's version of VHS, in my opinion. And somehow, some way, people are like granting this as like one of like a really good paranormal movie. And I guess I can see why, because the atmosphere in this movie is pretty solid, and some of the suspense is okay, I guess. But basically, they get to this hotel, and our main cast of characters have to kind of set up shop in this haunted house. They put like a little text thing. It like takes them like a week to get the electricity on, and but like for some reason these characters sleep there. They sleep in an abandoned hotel. I don't know why. I still don't understand why. And there's one character in particular who just kind of weird shit starts happening to him, and he starts kind of questioning the hotel. And they found these clowns in the basement. These clowns were just there. They just kind of pop up on screen. There's no real introduction to these clowns. They're just kind of there off the rip in the basement. Nobody questions this for some reason. And in the same basement, they find they find these clowns in. They also find a pentagram on the wall with two holy Bibles, and the only person to question this is the character Sarah, and everybody for some reason brushes this off as just a coincidence because the place has been abandoned for over 30 years. Okay, cool. And one of the characters starts to kind of fuck around with the clowns, like he's like poking at them, setting them up, whatever. All this shit. Nobody's questioning anything at this point. I'm just going to assume that they might have brought the clowns themselves. I don't really know. This movie's really fucking confusing. I'm assuming that they were just down there. My second guess is they brought them in to the basement, to like set up for like the horror attraction. And I guess they're costumes, so I guess that makes sense, but whatever. It doesn't really matter. However, these clowns do play a very big part in this movie, as they are kind of the main scares to this plot. So I'm going to get into the part of the movie that really started to lose me as a horror film. There's a lot of glitching of the camera in your typical found footage movie, and this movie outdoes itself with how many times it glitches the camera, so you can't actually really see a scare or like what's really going on. It's clearly a lazy way to kind of, move on to the next scene. I will say there is one really cool scene in this movie that I actually did like. It's like a strobe light effect where they're kind of testing a hallway to like walk through, and one of these clowns I think pops up in the strobe light and is slowly moving closer to the dude holding the camera. Dude starts to freak out, asking his buddy Alex, "Hey man, let me the fuck out of here." He gets out, yada yada. There is a scene in this movie as well. I couldn't find the right image for this, but this is the best one I could get for the scene I'm about to talk about. So they're walking through the haunted house. They're doing a little test run. Paul, not Paul. Nick. I'm just gonna say Nick is walking through the entire thing, and he's showing off the haunted house. And then he sees this guy right here standing at the foot of the steps of the basement. And he's asking, like, "Oh, what are you looking at, man?" Like, he thinks it's one of his buddies, just kind of trying on the costume. And he pans back, and the clown is currently now looking at him, and he freaks out and runs away to tell Alex and whoever else. I think it was Paul, just sitting there talking. And he tries to show them, and guess what? The clown's gone, and he's back in the basement right where they left him. And they review the footage in this movie. They review the footage of the clown randomly disappearing after looking at this guy. And somehow, some way, none of the characters believe him, and they somehow try saying it was Paul. That Paul was the one pulling the prank, which makes no sense because Paul was talking to Alex, and I don't understand how. In what world is this dude, Barry Allen, the Flash, running up the stairs past this guy to go talk to Alex? Whatever. So they all start pointing fingers at Paul, and I guess the plot to that is like he's kind of the jokester of the group, the prankster. So they just automatically assumed he had something to do with the clown ending up at the foot of the stairs, but they don't really dive into that much until later on in the film, which I guess it's whatever. But, dude, this movie is so all over the place with its plot. A lot of the characters just really, really don't hit for me. There's a scene where, you know what, we're just going to show it. There's a scene where this is Paul. This is Paul right here. This guy right here is the only logical one in this film. Shit keeps happening to Paul throughout the movie, and everybody, for some reason, thinks he's fucking lying, which makes no goddamn sense. Because he's the first one to be like, "Hey guys, weird shit's happening to me. Like, I saw a silhouette in my door last night. Like, these clowns are like looking at me, yada yada." A scene before this, Paul wakes up in the middle of the night, and Nick does as well, and they find Sarah downstairs just talking to herself into a wall, speaking fucking moon runes. They finally convince her to wake up. All this shit, they freak out, they get her back to bed. The next day comes around. And then, honestly, this movie was so bad I try to forget most of these scenes, but I'm more than positive this scene happens before the big, hoopla happens. So basically, Paul's sitting here talking to the camera. I think he's doing research, I don't remember. And this lady in white is sitting behind him, who I'm assuming is one of the main ghosts in this hotel. And for the longest time in this movie, I genuinely thought this chick was possessing Sarah, because there's two scenes with Sarah in particular. The one where she's talking to herself in the wall, and there's early on in the movie before this, she was caught by Alex and Paul staring at a religious statue in a park, being really weird with it. And they just kind of throw that whole plot out the window. That plot doesn't exist anymore. Now it's Paul who's about to get possessed. And in this scene, Paul has been the smartest character in this movie until this point. He's been the only one questioning things going on. He's been the only logical person, even if the others don't believe in the supernatural or paranormal, and Paul's still even questioning it. He doesn't want to be there anymore. And then this scene happens where he sees the lady in white, and instead of running for his life or throwing hands with the ghost, fight, instead of choosing fight or flight, he chooses to hide under the covers like a 5-year-old who saw their closet open. Okay, he hides under the covers, and 3 different times he takes the covers off. He sees the woman getting closer to him, with what looks to be an intent to unalive Paul. And instead of just running at this point, he keeps hiding under the covers, keeps peeking back out, and about the third time he peeks back out under the covers, he gets attacked by the woman in white. And then Paul is kind of gone for a little bit, and then it cuts to a scene where Nick and the other camera guy are looking for Paul because they don't know where he went. At first, they assume that he just dipped, but then they start hearing a piano play in the background, and they track down the piano to a doll in the movie who I actually remember the doll's name, Hector. They see the dummy playing the piano. They thought it was Paul, and ends up not being Paul. And then they hear something in the basement. They go down into the basement. They see the clowns. They're checking to see if Paul's hiding in the freezer in the basement. Turns out he's not hiding in the freezer in the basement. And when they turn around, they see all three clown dummies looking at them in their direction. And then they turn around one more time and they see Paul against the wall sitting down with his eyes closed, which appears to be as if he's faking to be asleep, and they think he's fucking with them. Or they think he's fucking with them, and they try to wake him up. He's not waking up. He starts to mumble some shit in his sleep, and this is where Nick kind of realizes that, shit's fucked here. We should all get the fuck out of here. Let's get Paul. They take Paul, they put him back in his room, and then they wake up Alex to bring Alex down to the basement. And this is why Alex is my least favorite character in this entire film, is this scene in particular where Nick is trying to explain to Alex that these dummies or mannequins, whatever, move their heads by themselves, and Nick even tried to move the head of one of them, and the heads don't turn. And Nick tells Alex blatantly their heads cannot be physically turned by anybody as they are stuck in place. And as Nick is explaining this to Alex, Alex is trying to turn the head of one of the clown dolls. Dolls, dummies, mannequins, whatever. Alex cannot get it to turn, yet Nick asked, basically, hey, you can't turn the heads on this. How do you explain this? Like, I want to get the fuck out of here. I think we should all leave. And Alex, straight face, looks at Nick dead in the eyes and says, I'm still trying to figure that one out. What do you mean, Alex? What do you mean you're still trying to figure that one out? That makes no fucking sense. He literally just told you physically can't move it. You yourself tried physically moving the head of the mannequin and it wouldn't fucking move. And you're still like, oh no, bro, you're just being a little bitch. You probably move them. Like, I'm just not strong enough. My little boy arms can't move the mannequin head. But you're just crazy. So Nick crashes out, reasonably so, and goes outside onto the balcony. Mind you, this is another scene where the shots just kind of cut in between each other that make no fucking sense at all, especially with the time of day. It cuts to Nick going outside, and it is it's raining. It's cloudy out. It looks like it's probably just early in the morning. Okay, and one camera guy follows him outside, trying to convince him to stay, and then the shot immediately cuts to Nick sitting in a fucking meadow field, which, for a found footage film, makes no sense why it cuts to a shot of him in a meadow, what looks to be at sunset in broad daylight, which implies that Nick set up the camera in the field to sit there and ponder life as if he's supposed to leave this haunted hotel and save his own ass, or stay to make sure his friends are safe. And then the camera guy walks up to him, calms him down, and somehow convinces Nick, after all this shit happening, to stay in the haunted hotel. That might be the second worst scene in the movie. It makes no sense when it comes to a found footage standpoint, and I'm surprised not a lot of people question that scene because it literally made no fucking sense. And to wrap up this plot in this movie being what it is, it's the day of the opening of the haunted house. And let's just say, I don't understand the direction of this plot. I don't even know why they're still staying there, but whatever. I haven't mentioned the side characters yet, but there's a reason, because there's nothing to talk about these side characters. I don't even remember their names except for one, and that's Joey, who plays a clown in the basement. These side characters are introduced in the very first half of the movie, and the girl, I think her name was Melissa or something, she has 2 sentences of dialogue talking to the guy on the camera who's being very oddly flirtatious and just downright uncomfy and weird with her. And those are really only her lines, except for like a couple words thrown out here and there when they're setting up the haunted house. Joey, on the other hand, has like maybe five words that he ever speaks in the movie, and half the time he's just kind of laughing with the crew because they're like making jokes with him, blah blah blah. And so Melissa and the Joey guy, they're sitting in the basement. I want to keep this in mind. I'm just gonna throw a huge spoiler out there. Before I continue, everybody in this movie fucking dies. Everybody dies, and somehow the sole survivor of this movie is a side character that barely has any lines, and that's Joey. Literally in the shot where they introduce Joey, it freeze frames, and it's like, oh, like Joey, he was the only one to get out of the house, and he ran out of the basement because he saw something. It's implied that he saw something in the basement that freaked him out enough to want to leave, and then 9 days later he unalives himself. What? So the movie tells you everybody's going to die. All right? Everybody's kicking the bucket except for the side character that meant literally nothing to the story except for this one scene where a group of people come downstairs exploring the haunted house, and then it's like the director's like on time said, "All right, guys, say your lines now," because in the scene, it looks like Melissa and Joey are waiting for people to come downstairs. Melissa looks at the people and then starts screaming for Joey to help her and not to leave her there. And then Joey runs out of there like Sonic the Hedgehog, not saying anything. And it's like, and mind you, also he has the keys to her shackles because, like, I guess like the haunted thing was he was supposed to be like a clown with the intent of unaliving people, and then like she's like his victim or whatever, like basic haunted house shit, like, oh, look at this scene, ha ha ha. He has the keys to her shackles, and this scene makes me so angry because in that time Joey could have easily ran to Melissa, unshackled her, and they both could have made it out of there. And I'm assuming the intent of Joey unaliving himself in that little pop-up panel that they show you at the start of the movie is, I'm assuming he feels guilty for leaving, just leaving Melissa there to get unalived. And also in the same scene, cloak people, like a cult members spawn in like Minecraft creative mode and just sacrifice her off screen. The camera glitches off screen. Cool. Very, very lazy, guys. I'm glad. And it was such an obvious cut, too. It was such an obvious cut. Because the cut where they spawn in, it glitches, it comes back, it shows them for a split second about to unalive this chick. And then it glitches again, and then it cuts to a completely different scene. Very, very cool, guys. You guys did a real good job at saving an extra $5 on that scene. Congratulations. You bored me. And probably a lot of other people too. Also, I want to point out something about this movie. I'm guessing another reason for Joey running away is I'm guessing he saw one of these clowns on screen right now, probably turn to him and look at him. And that's what probably freaked him out, I guess. It's never said what made him run. It's never said like anything about this Joey character. It's all implication, like, oh, we're implying that this is why he ran, this is why he feels guilty. It's never said, though. Whatever. And then all hell breaks loose in this haunted house. Shelves are falling over, the crew's freaking out, and then Nick is trying to help people get outside along with the cameraman on the other side of the building. They're helping people get out of the haunted house. And then, he helps people get out, and then the door slams shut on Nick, and then he sees Sarah coming down the stairs, and they're trying to go wake Paul up, and Paul's just not budging. He's just whatever. And then they go upstairs to the attic where they have, like, their cameras set up to, like, make sure people aren't, getting down and dirty in the haunted house, whatever. And then they see Alex. Alex is, a rope is attached to his, his Adam's apple, and he's hanging from thin air, I guess. I'm assuming there's like some beam in the attic that's not in the shot, but in the like, I don't even know. But he's dangling there, you know, like a silly goofy guy, and instead of doing the logical thing, if you see somebody in that situation, instead of holding him up so he can catch his breath and then figure out how to get him down from there, Nick starts yanking him down to try to get him off of the ceiling. What the fuck are you doing? Never, I mean, it could have just been the angle of the camera from the movie. Maybe there was just so much going on that, like, I just assumed this, but from the looks of it, it looks like he tried to yank him down from the rope. What? In any realistic situation, I don't care. You could be the most dumb person in the world. At least you would still have the common sense to lift that person up instead of trying to yank them down, because you're just speeding up the process at that point. Obviously, Nick fails. Alex gets unalived, and then the cloak people spawn behind Alex, and then Nick tries to turn to run away, and then more cloak people spawn behind him, because this movie just stopped caring about what the plot is at this point, and they're just trying to like get as many scares and jump scares as they can out at this point. He yells at Sarah, run, and then Sarah starts running, and then bro gets consumed by the cloak people, and it's presumed that he got unalived. Once again, off camera. Very cool, Kanye. Really glad that you guys took the lazy route when it came to the death scenes in this movie. Really cool. Sarah gets downstairs and she ends up finding Paul. Paul is standing there menacingly in the door. And then oh my god, I'm losing my train of thought trying to think about this movie. I even forgot to go to the next slide. That's how much this movie pissed me off. We're made to believe Sarah made it out alive, which brings us to this scene where she's talking to an interviewer, and they do show scenes of this happening throughout the movie, of her talking to an interviewer in a hotel, with another guy off to the side, who doesn't even say anything. I'm pretty sure he's just recording everything happening. While he's also, mind you, he's watching the footage. He's watching the footage of everything happening while they are talking to Sarah. And then before I get to the big plot twist, Sarah gets up and says, hey, I want to be alone. I'm going back to my hotel room. You can find me in room 2C. And then Sarah, in a very, very direct and definitely not suspicious way, tries to convince the interviewer and her cameraman to go to the haunted hotel to break in to find evidence? What? And for some reason, the interviewer takes that as some sort of challenge, and the cameraman reasonably says, I'm not going, this is crazy, and the interviewer literally calls him a pussy for not wanting to go. Are you fucking kidding me? That's how we're gonna get these people, like, oh, basically, like, oh, like, you're a pussy if you don't do it. No balls, basically, no balls, bro. Come on, you don't got balls, bro. What are you, little baby? You little baby man? Come on, bro, don't be such a pussy, bro. Come on, dude, just come on. Let's break into a haunted hotel where a bunch of people got unalived at like 2 weeks ago. Come on, bro. Like, what are you doing, bro? Whatever. And then before they even go to the haunted hotel, before they break in, it cuts back to the scene with Paul and Sarah, and Paul's standing there. Sarah goes to hug Paul, and you know Paul's clearly standing there. Bro's gone, bro. He's gone, man. He's gone. He's not there anymore. Sarah realizes this, but it's too late, and Paul hits her down and unalives her, and then she, while she's sitting there bleeding out, she gets dragged away off screen by, I presume, one of the cloak demons. And then I will say, we finally get to see a scene where somebody, like a true, like, you get to see this character get unalived on screen, which I feel like this is where most of the budget went for this one scene. I feel like even maybe some of the cinematography too, but besides that, especially when it comes to the gore part of things, Paul does something to his throat with a piece of glass, and he starts, choking on his own blood, falls down to the ground, and passes away peacefully. Definitely peacefully. You hear a cop bang on the door, and then you hear a rock, or like a rock or something get thrown through a window, and then the door breaks open, assuming that the cops finally got in, and Paul is the first victim they see of this tragedy. And then it cuts back to the reporter and her camera guy breaking in to the haunted hotel. And most of this scene, she's just calling her camera guy a pussy because he doesn't want to go into the basement where like everything basically went down, and doesn't want to go like really anywhere. He just kind of wants to go in and out, like take like a couple shots of the building and be like, all right, let's go. And the entire time, the chick that he's with is like, oh, dude, you're just a pussy, bro. Like, come on, bro. Like, you're ruining the vibe. All right, you're ruining my fun. And so she somehow convinces him to go upstairs. And when they get to the top of the stairs, what room do they see? Oh, wait, they see room 2C. Oh, that's the room Sarah said to find her in if they needed her. And when they open the door, they see Sarah sitting on the bed. Ooh, spooky. And obviously, they're stun locked and in shock that she's here because they literally just saw her like, I don't know, like 45 minutes ago at the other hotel down the road or in the city, wherever the fuck they were. And the reporter is like, Sarah? And then Sarah turns around, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. Again, like, some of this movie already left my brain, so a lot of these scenes I could be wrong on, but like, I'm definitely hitting the money a little bit. Like, I'm definitely accurate with how most of these scenes play out. She turns around and there's like a stab wound or like a mark like on like her like below her right eye. Assume like saying that she might have like gone like stabbed in the cheek, even though it's implied that Paul stabbed her in the chest. I don't know. Maybe they were like, oh, like, I mean, she was getting, unalived off camera, but like there was a lot of blood on her chest when they showed her again, and her face. So like, I guess, but that's a really big nitpick. I guess it's not that big of a deal, but whatever. And she's sitting there smiling at them, and then the cloak people literally, and you blink, and these cloak people literally. Like they look, the camera cuts and they spawn in randomly. Like it's insane. And then the reporter and the camera guy get unalived off camera by the cloak people. This movie is hands down one of the worst found footage movies I have ever watched in my entire life. And I may not be the biggest fan of found footage movies, but there are definitely some gems in the genre. And honestly, I will say this about the movie. I'm going to give my final review real quickly before I end this video. Final review. The cinematography in this movie was actually pretty solid. I actually like some of the shots that were shot when everything wasn't glitching or cutting away. Some of the shots were actually very well done, especially the scenes where the clowns actually popped up in the movie to give you a little scare and suspense. So 7 out of 10 for the cinematography. I feel like a lot of the effort definitely went into the cinematography. The soundtrack was basically non-existent. I don't even remember like a sound cue or any like suspenseful music playing like at all in the entire film, which I guess makes sense for a found footage film, but I think especially with the scenes with the clowns popping up, it would have definitely put a little like cherry on top for those scenes. So I didn't even get a review for the soundtrack because I don't remember there being a soundtrack. The setting, a haunted hotel turned into a like haunted attraction for people to come to, is a really cool idea. I like movies that kind of do that, like turning a haunted house into a like real like, or a haunted attraction turn into like a real like thing going on, and people don't know if it's real or fake and people freak out, etc. Setting 8 out of 10. I really like the setting of this movie. Holy shit, the characters fucking suck in this movie. I was rooting for Paul for most of the movie because he was like the only smart character, and then that one scene where he hid under the covers like a little scared boy really just took any aura he had, just left the building, and I just started to hate him after that. Alex was the worst character. Alex actually sucked. He was the worst character, and he was just a dickhead the entire time, just an absolute chotch. Yeah, he wasn't a good character. Fuck Alex. That guy's a dick. I'm gonna say this right now. The only reason why everybody got unalived in this movie is because of Alex. Alex is the real villain here. The plot, 2 out of 10. This plot was so all over the place. There were so many plots happening at once in this movie, and the movie didn't really know who it wanted the main character to be. It felt like it was kind of bouncing between Paul and Sarah, and it just kind of like, it couldn't find its foot with who wanted to be the main character. And I really thought the movie was leading towards the clowns were like really going to come alive and start unaliving people, which wasn't the case. The plot twist ended up being the cloak cult people possessing Paul and Sarah, which is kind of a lame plot twist, especially when the only time they implied a cult being in the movie was at the very beginning, and that's the only mention of a cult in the entire film. So like it kind of left my brain, or that thought left my brain that wasn't even a possibility, but it turns out it was. Overall rating, 5 out of 10. I'm being a little generous with this one because I do think it's like a fun watch if you're like hanging out with friends and like making like a drinking game or something out of it, because it's just a bad, like funny, like it's a bad, like you can make fun of this movie while watching it with your friends. It's just not a good horror movie. It's not a good found footage movie. The only thing it has going for it is the cinematography and setting, but once you kind of get bored of that, you just kind of stop caring about what's going on in the movie like halfway through. So, thanks for watching this piss poor attempt of a movie review, because I don't know really how to edit anything, and I don't know how to do like jump cuts or anything, so I'll figure it out at some point. My phone notification just went off. That's really cool. That's probably gonna get picked up by the mic. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my first ever horror movie review on WTF Horror. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or good night to anybody who's watching this at whatever time of day. Don't let the basement clowns bite. I will see you in the next one.